You want me to give one of the Redditor takes of just like I'm talking completely out of my ass. I know
Yes,
nothing about anything
absolutely.
about how it works. I know nothing about like interview process or application process or any conversation with Riot. Okay, I'll do one of those. So when it comes to all of our issues on T1 this past year, none of it were me. It was all David Denis and Curry. Okay.
Welcome back, my friends, here to Valoranting. And I'm not going to beat around the bush because we don't have too much time with the man, the myth, the legend. We actually do have Josh Steele Nissan, the IGL of T1, joining us right now for an interview to talk about the team. So, Josh, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining us. And you know what? I brought that question mark up before. Maybe you're IGLing. Are you IGLing again now that you left 100 Thieves and with T1 now?
Yeah, it's to be determined, to be seen. You guys will just have to tune into our matches and all of our future interviews if you want the real answer to this question. And for now, I'll just leave it very vague.
Okay. Well, at least give us a little bit of meat of what's been going on with T1 because yes, we you played 3 matches. You're like, okay, let's watch our matches. I saw fucking none of them because 3 of them were not streamed yesterday. But what has the year been so far with you and T1 with all the roster changes and now, of course, the recent addition of Ben joining T1?
Wow. Okay. How long do I have? Because that I could be answering for like 3 hours. So
Well, you have a hard
you get
stop at
you
a
want
certain
the
time,
short
so take all
short.
the time you want.
Yeah. So at the start of the year, obviously we had David Denny as our coach, and we were trying to, I guess, develop a younger talent
Yep.
to see like, oh, these guys have potential, they have skill. Let's see, can we add all this like structure and everything to it? And things just didn't work out the way that I guess the vision was. So I guess more recently, as everyone's seen, we have Autumn as the head coach now, and he's come from Cloud9. We have Munchkin, we have Zeta, we have Ban,
Mhm.
and so now we have a different vision, a different like outlook in how the teams will be structured, how the team will do practice, what type of roles everyone's going to be on. Everything about the team is going to be a little bit different. We have players that are a little bit more experienced, and it's going to be a lot more of like people that kind of already know what to do and make their own decisions types of things. That's like the main point of I guess how the roster is going to operate right now. So everyone's kind of got their own input. Everyone makes their own decisions, and people like there's no like, oh, you must do this now, you must do that now. Now we go to the next step type of thing.
Okay. Gio, you're here. Your camera's still. I actually like the chat that said you're colorful as always. So I like that little pun. But you're good.
Obviously, earlier my camera overheated, and then just now I realized that I didn't have the power plugged into the outlet, so that was great. Good stuff.
All good.
Well
All
done,
good. No
Gio.
overheats. No overheats.
But I am here.
All right, sweet. So yeah, so let's go ahead and continue then with the conversation. So you talked about David Denis here, Josh. What has the learning experience been like with David Denis in that first year before you had the roster changes or at least the coaching changes within the T1 system?
Oh, I don't know how much of this I can answer. I think one of the things that we learned is if you're a coach, don't type in all chat. I'm kidding. Okay.
Jesus fucking
Uh,
Christ.
anyways,
Uh,
it was a learning experience about kind of just like how to structure practice without overloading people's brains. I think
mm,
that was like the main issue that happened the first iteration was that there was just so much stuff that we were trying to do all at the same time, and it kind of just like piled on, and people weren't able to kind of just like keep up with the weight of everything that we're just piling up. I say we, I promise I'm not the big bad wolf that everyone makes me out to be. I think there were a few different avenues. I think part of it was that there was a lot of input from a lot of different people, and the just accumulation of all of that was just too much for people to kind of juggle. And so
mhm.
it just we ended up losing to teams that arguably we shouldn't be losing to if we're on a T1 org.
Mhm.
Get it? T1 because we're
Yep,
in.
I got it.
Okay,
See,
okay,
you're
okay.
good with puns. Yeah, I like them. I like them. I like them. You should be a caster.
Thank you. I having seen some of the recent casts, I think never mind. No comment.
Oh, is that why you're on Duolingo right now, just to learn how to say Tour de France?
Yes. I'm doing Duolingo for French. Français.
Nice.
Je m'appelle Joshua. Comment t'appelles-tu? Comment ça
Moi,
va?
je m'appelle Alexandre, mais je pense que Marc a une question pour toi aussi.
Alexandre?
Yeah, that's my name. You didn't know that?
I
Josh,
know
I
it's
helped you move
Alex,
your match.
but
Yeah,
is it
okay.
not
Yeah.
Alexander?
No, it's Alexandre. I'm still French.
Alexandre. Okay,
Yeah.
Alexandre.
Alexandre.
Okay.
Sorry, Mark. Go
Alexandre.
ahead.
It's so
I would love to speak in another language, but I know like 5 words in Spanish still, since I'm way too old to remember that stuff in high school. For you're now slotting out of Sentinels, which you played for like a really long time. You were playing Sentinels. Now you're playing more of a controller. At least what I've seen in the last 3 matches, you played Sentinel one time. Again, we were basically like blind because we haven't seen you guys play since May until last night, which we still didn't see, and we're just looking at match pages to try to make assumptions. But is that something we're going to see? Are you going to be slotting into more of a controller role now that Chamber has become so powerful? It's sort of like you need your op to be playing that job.
kind of not. I would say maybe we're trying to get me into more of a lurker role, and current meta, the way that Chambers just in the meta still, because he's not completely blown up, that means that we're not seeing still as much Cypher or Killjoy. But the maps that we will see those agents, there's a high likelihood that I'll be on it. So for example, we played a Haven last night and I played Killjoy. But then we also played maps where I was Viper and Brimstone. So yeah, it's more so about the lurker than about the sentinel versus controller.
So I'm interested because obviously T1 haven't been a part of like the main like VCT challenges for a lot of this season. So now that now
That's a very delicate way to put it. You really just danced around that one.
I try my best. Yeah. Okay. Well, oh my god, I've literally like lost my words. The way. That's not even what I was going to say. The thing that Riot announced literally today or yesterday or whenever it was about the Challengers Ascension and the new essentially tier 2 part of the 2023 format. What are your feelings on that? Just given that kind of that part of the scene has been where you've spent some of your time recently.
I think it's a very good direction. I think that having seen what happened in other esports scenes about how there will be a sweeping change to the entire ecosystem, to like how the pro league division, like the main pro league division, is run, and then like teams are just finding out, oh hey, by the way, yeah, you're not going to be in the league next year, sorry. And it's like, okay, well, what do I do? It's like, well, you can always play MDL. Okay, can I get back into pro league? Don't know. It's like, it's good that Riot's putting out this pathway, and I'd like to think that the Valorant Pro Players Association has had some kind of influence in that. There were conversations that they had with Riot, and by the way, if you're an aspiring pro or pro player and you want to know more about it, reach out to Vanity. He knows everything about the Pro Players Association in North America. So you should basically the conversations were, okay, we kind of like understand that you want to do this partnership thing, but what happens with the tier 2 scene? What happens with the teams that don't make these partnerships? Is there a clear path to like moving up or anything? So yeah, basically we it's good. I think it's good that there's a clear path, that orgs are going to be like, oh, okay, I know that there's a chance to be moved up and everything. That means that players are going to have opportunities to have careers in the game, and people aren't going to be sitting there with giant question marks about like, what do I do next? So I think it's a good direction. And as there are people that will say, oh, but it's only this or that. It's like, I think this is at least a good first step, considering what I've seen in the past. And I've been around the block for 14 years. I can see how bad it can be. Okay, believe me.
Can you share what's like that question mark as to like what's next, especially if you're part of that partner program or if you're actually part of the challenger scene trying to move into that tier 1 level, is there anything around like the relegations or in terms of rosters that you need to have a minimum players into those teams or not, or is that
Oh,
still?
those okay, so those types of details, like, either I'm not fully aware of, or like
Mhm.
these are currently being discussed or in the future going to be discussed. I like with regards to those specifics, I don't know.
Okay.
What I can
Okay.
say is like there's communication with Riot,
Mhm.
and the whole ecosystem is kind of in mind. It's not just like the tier one, like the top 10 teams in the world are like
Mhm.
looked out for, and then everyone else is like, you're on your own. Good luck, buddy.
Well, at least then continue on that topic of what's next, because chat again, we always portray Josh to be like the big bad wolf in every scene that he plays, but
The
actually,
villain.
if you actually watch his streams outside of the molding and rank games, he's actually a guy that has a lot of wisdom and actually tries to set up people that are like aspiring to become pro, or what are the next steps. And I do remember watching your streams one time, Josh, when you're mentioning it's actually important to diversify, right? If you don't have that career anymore into pro play, what's the next step? Is it's trying to build a little bit more into content creation for YouTube, now TikTok, Instagram Reels, whatever. Do you think that is still going to be a very important aspect as a pro, as an aspiring pro, knowing what's about to happen within the scene, at least for Valorant in the franchises, or sorry, in the partnership program system?
Well, I would almost argue, like, regardless of a partnership system or anything of that sort, I'd say it's in your best interest as a pro or an aspiring pro to build your brand, whether that be streaming, being, active on social media, reaching out, networking, getting sponsorship deals, and leveraging any other talent or abilities you have. So if you're good at doing like an analysis stuff and you want to make YouTube videos, go for that. If you want to do stuff where you're getting on the main broadcast, go for that. So like I guess like what you're talking about is, I've done work as analyst, I've been commentator, I've
Mhm.
done observer work, I've done coaching, I've been a player. So
Mhm.
if T1 suddenly says, steal, by the way, unlucky, really, and you're out, it's I have any of those avenues to choose from. But if there's Joe Blogs that's like, on some other team, and the team's like, oh, by the way, you're out, and then he's like reaching out to all these other teams, and those teams aren't giving him tryouts, what is his next course of action?
Mhm.
Oh, no stream. Nobody knows this person. Nobody's going to give them a tryout because they're not known. You need to make sure that you have something like a resume or a CV that you could say, hey, look, I can do these things, and this is why you should give me a shot at doing this thing.
Mm.
So I have to ask. Obviously, LCQ has been a big topic of conversation. I'm not necessarily going to ask exactly about like the specific result of LCQ, but more in general. Obviously, this time last year, you were still on 100 Thieves, and 100 Thieves have gone through a lot of changes in that time. Some have been pretty controversial, and then obviously they decided to stick with the sort of system they're running with now, where they brought on Sean, DDK, Mikes, and they changed their roster, and now they've ended up here. What is your overall take on this journey that 100 Thieves have gone through since your departure from the roster?
I think what they did this year was really good in terms of getting, from the top down, a team manager. You had the coaching staff with the analyst. Everyone's working together to figure out what they want to do. They built a team around Asuna as like I guess the final piece, and they found players that worked with him, that everyone got along together, and or it seems from the outside at the least that that's what happens. And when you have everyone kind of working together towards a common goal, and everyone wants to be there, and everyone enjoys the company of everyone else, and everyone enjoys the game, and everyone plays the game regularly, you're going to have a good time. And I think
Mm.
that might not have necessarily existed around my era on the team, or even shortly after that. And I think that there needed to kind of be that reset switch. So as much as like 100 Thieves gets memed about, oh, why'd they just like nuke the roster after like 2 matches? They didn't give Baby Bay and Eccles a chance, and blah 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 blah. It's like I feel like that iteration of the roster was kind of just like, we need to make something happen, and we're out of time, so let's just do something. And then they realized that it wasn't the right fit for a multitude of reasons. And I feel like it's pretty obvious to say that, not
Mhm.
even like a hindsight thing. Like when that happened, I was like, really. And I think that the players that they ended up getting, and also the staff and everything around it, I think it was everything that they did in this year was a good move in the right direction. Like that's what they needed to do. They have players that all like playing the game, that play the game, that like each other, and have a common goal, and they're working towards the goal together with coaches, and everyone's kind of, it seems like, listening to each other. I could be completely wrong with that. Maybe the players hate each other, and maybe the
They
players
just
think
fooled
that the
you.
coaches, Sean's an idiot or something. I don't know. Maybe that's happening, but it doesn't seem like that from the outside.
Josh, you mentioned maybe potentially getting back into commentary. If you want to revive the iBuyPower Masters duo from once upon a time, I'm down.
Was that 2017?
Yeah, that was quite some time ago. But I actually do want to ask you, like, we haven't really seen a whole lot from T1, and we start to know what next year's going to look like. We start to see how the scene's shaping up. We have leaks and rumors about who some of these partner teams are going to be. Where do you think T1 sits currently in that pecking order? Like, obviously, we have our teams at the top who are going to be partner teams. Where is T1 in that mix? Because honestly, it's like hard to say. Like, you guys are ranked 26th on VLR, but it's mostly because you haven't really played
VLR
anything.
rankings.
Yeah, like,
who cares about those?
but like, honestly, I am curious where you feel you guys are going to be kind of slotting in against some of the other up and coming teams, like tier 1.5 to tier 2 area.
Okay, so first of all, you want me to give one of the Redditor takes of just like, I'm talking completely out of my ass. I
Yes.
know nothing about anything
Absolutely.
about how it works. I know nothing about like interview process or application process or any conversation with Riot. Okay, I'll do one of those. So when it comes to the VLR ranking, obviously, like, we're down in the gutters, down in the dumps. But when it comes to any sport that's franchised or partnered or anything like that, you always have a consolidation of talent, right? So you have players on like 30 teams right now, where you have 30 teams with like 2 good players per team, and then like a couple of like pretty good players, and a player that's like, yeah, are you supposed to be there? And what's going to happen is you're going to
Which one are
have,
you?
to be determined, I guess. I don't know. It depends on stage 1. I'm the really talented one. Stage 2, it's like, should you really be there? So I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a consolidation where you're going to have the teams that make it kind of make adjustments, maybe blurring like one roster. Like if Optic made it, for example, maybe they don't change. And I guess 100 Thieves right now, with them winning LCQ, maybe they don't change. But like, you know what I mean? If there's teams that make it, there will be changes most likely. Where does T1 stand? I hope in a really good spot. So if Riot was looking at just VLR rankings, I guess we're doomed. And if they're looking at other things about you know, infrastructure, about what they can provide to the scene, about what they have done for the scene and history and everything like that, I think there's a pretty decent chance. But I am not part of any of these conversations. I'm not even like, so if it's like the CEO and the GMs taking all the conversations and stuff, it trickles down where if they're like a 10 out of 10 for understanding what their chances are, I'm at like a 0.5 out of 10. I think like every player and every team is like that. They're like, I think we have a pretty good chance, but I don't know for sure, because there's so many orgs out there that have like pretty good, like, you could argue, oh, this team for sure they make it in, right? The no brainer. They have this, whatever. They've had insane results. They have blah blah blah. And it's like, I mean, you could say that about so many teams, right?
Yeah.
So but you, at the end of the day, have to reduce like what, 12 or 10 teams into what, 6 or 7 or whatever it is. So teams are going to get left out, and there's no way to know who.
Right. Are you worried at all that, like, maybe you build all this time with this roster and then players get plucked away and the whole thing just falls apart after all that work?
I guess we'll see what happens, and it wouldn't be the worst thing that would happen to me in esports. I'll say that much.
So we go from 2021, unlucky, really quoted from Steel, but this year for 2022 is stay tuned.
It's
for
stay
Steel.
tuned, and maybe truly unfortunate, really.
But at least let's have the conversation on at least topics that you could actually talk about in terms of the organization, which is the roster in itself. So, you know, we got Autumn that joined as a coach. What has that been like for Autumn versus David Denis? And I also want you to like tell all the Redditors and everybody else to shut up about Curry not being that main Curry being the reason why C9 is not performing well for that roster, because I'm pretty sure that he put up a good role for T1 as well.
Oh, you know what? Now that you mention it that way, yeah, all of our issues on T1 this past year, none of it were me. It was all David Denis and Curry. Okay, so you'll see now that we're not playing with Curry, we're gonna be insane. Okay, you did
What?
this. You
No, no,
did
no,
this.
no, no.
If Rahul, if you're listening to this, if anybody you're gonna be pissed with, it's not me. It's Alex Vincili Win to the Foss.
Tour de force, tour de force. But in all seriousness, though, how did that conversation come about? Like, why pick up even Munchkin coming out from Korea, where when you're looking at the list of talent that currently exists in North America, there's a lot of free agents that are available as well. So how does that chemistry and that synergy work out with the current roster that you've built?
Okay, so I'm gonna yada yada a few details here.
Let's yada yada it.
So Cloud9 had Autumn, and T1 had David Denis, and Cloud9 had Zeta, and uh, T1 had Curry. Yada
Yes.
yada. Cloud9 now has Curry, and T1 has Zeta and Autumn. So
Correct.
Autumn is the head coach, and he kind of wants to build up the players to kind of be self sufficient, just like um, a focus on like teamwork and utility usage, but kind of everyone's making their own plans and decisions, and kind of like not just one person kind of microing or kind of making all the plans for everyone.
Hmm.
So it's been a lot of just kind of like trial and error with roles, with compositions, with trying to figure out like what our best maps are and what our best roles are, and how everything mixes well together, and the how to like kind of tweak the IGL style a little bit, and how to kind of like get everything together, because we're mixing up this North American style with this Korean style, and we have players that have different philosophies on how to approach the game. For example, I have a pretty like set way of how to think about the game and how I view it and how I view agents and maps and everything.
Hmm.
And now, Munchkin has a different idea, and Zeta has a different idea, and we're basically trying to get on the same page with everything. So trying to figure out that balance of IGL style, find the balance of roles and composition and um, tempo and everything, and simplicity in the strats and everything. It's all just like this delicate balance that we're trying to kind of slowly dial in,
Mm.
um, dial up to 11, but we're slowly dialing it there to a good place. And
Mm.
I mean, it might not look good from yesterday's stats page, but I think I think our results in scrims against LCQ teams, for example, the past few weeks has been pretty good. There's only been one team that really kind of blew us away, that being the guard, actually. But every other team was, I mean, we did pretty well. So
Mm.
I think we're in a good track.
Nice.
Given that Champions is obviously about to happen, whereas last year it was in December, are you looking forward to the fact that the kind of off season where these third party tournaments are supposedly happening, that's coming soon? Because you should presumably have more of an opportunity to play in officials against other like VCT teams, rather than just scrims. Is that something that you think that you're looking forward to, or is going to be really good for T1 compared to what the format was last year?
There's zero chance that there's going to be no third party matches over the next 5 to 6 months. It's going to be just like this wasteland, this like post apocalyptic like wasteland where people are using like bottle caps for trading. No, I think there will be a lot of
Okay,
third
Fallout.
party. I think there'll be a lot of third party events, and I think, or I don't know how many, but I think there's going to be enough worthwhile ones that is going to be something to look forward to playing in, because I mean, obviously, competitors are looking forward to like the VCT season, making champs and everything like that. But if you're a competitor like I am, you look to compete like at all times, and you have to take a like involuntary 4 to 6 month break. It's just ass. It's really ass. Even this year with like stage one done, okay, you're done for another couple months, and then stage two, it's done in like a couple weeks. You're done for a couple months. you're done for the rest of the year.
The year,
Like
yeah.
this has been so ass. Just scrimming and not playing matches has been so bad.
Where sorry, actually, as you mentioned that, I wanted to cut over to something too. What's that clear difference? Which is that better system? Because you've played the CS:GO circuits, you've played the Source circuits, LAN after LAN, international LAN after international LAN, versus now you kind of have something more streamlined in terms of the circuit for VCTs, but it's really cutthroat into the amount of events you had less events going into the last 2 years in Valorant.
I think somewhere in the middle would be a sweet spot. And I thought last year's circuit was pretty good, but it's also hard for me to say that without a grain of salt because we qualified for like every Masters,
Mhm.
or not every Masters, but every Challengers. So
Yeah.
we played like a large portion of the year, and then we also made like Masters 3 Berlin. Masters 1 was online, and then, well, I mean, we would have won LCQ and got the champs as well, but they
Mhm.
decided to do the funny. And so it's a bit skewed, my vision of like how it was last year, but I'd say CS is kind of like oversaturated where there's too many events, players burn out, the audience is just like, okay, why do I care about this, man? There's a tournament last week and there's a bigger tournament next week. Like, who cares about this? I think
Mhm.
what one thing CS has that Valorant doesn't have is that I think the quality of the matches and everything would be way better on LAN. I guess that's what, like, in part what the partnership thing is supposed to do, is that you're gonna have kind of like the LAN matches or studio matches or whatever, and I would imagine that makes it feel a lot better. I don't know what like the scheduling's gonna be like. I don't know
Mm.
any details about it, but I feel like playing online and having everything so spread apart is just not a good feeling for a competitor. And you need to find a sweet spot in between where Valorant is and where Counter Strike is, because Counter
Mhm.
Strike it's too many, but it's on LAN,
Mhm.
and Valorant it's not enough, and it's like 90% online.
Mhm. Mhm. Okay. More lands is what we want.
More
More lands is what
lands.
we
More
want.
land. I mean, in CS, more lands didn't necessarily help NA at all because unfortunately we kind of dropped the ball a lot in a lot of those
Yeah,
competitions. But I am curious, do you feel like NA is going to suffer the same fate here in Valorant? How do you think NA like stacks up against the EU teams or even Southeast Asia, the Korean teams that we see popping up? Do you think that NA, like we obviously started out as being one of the better regions because we didn't play anybody else and we just got to watch a lot of it? Do you think that that's fair? Is it actually true that NA could be a strong region, or are we getting weaker and weaker? Do you feel like maybe we're
Mm.
becoming one of the worst regions?
I think there's a lot of talent in NA. I think the problem with any region is about its mentality, mentality towards practice, mentality towards work ethic and professionalism, stuff like that. I
Sounds
don't
familiar.
think sounds very familiar, huh? I think that that is the major holdback of North America. It's not like the lack of talent; it's the lack of just professionalism, and I think that's why other regions kind of come together, because there's more professionalism in terms of, this is a job. I'm going to show up on time.
Mm.
I'm not just like clocking in when practice starts, clocking out when practice is over. I'm putting the time afterwards. I'm doing the VOD review, or I'm learning my lineups, or I'm, playing putting my individual time into the game. You're doing
Mhm.
all those things, but also you're not just sitting there thinking like, oh, I'm one person and that's it. I'm playing for myself. I'm playing for stats, because at the end of the day, if I want to move up and get paid more and everything, I need to show that I'm more valuable. And how do I do that? By having better stats. And I
Mm.
think
Mhm.
that's not necessarily the approach of other regions. It's not about like stats. It's about, how can I do something for the team so that we are successful? It's a little bit more selfless. And I don't know why. I mean, I have ideas as to why it's a North American thing, because it's the same thing in Counter Strike. It's the same thing in like every esport, basically. It's just, that's just the culture. It's the society. It's how everyone's just rewarded if you're a streamer. Even it's how people look at teams if they're commenting on Reddit or forums or of any sort. That's how people look at it. They don't
Mhm.
care about like the behind the scenes things. They don't care about what hidden value someone has towards a team. They care about what can you actually substantiate through statistics. And it's like, well, this
Mhm.
person's lowest ACS, he's bottom fragging, whatever. This guy must be a problem and he's got to go, and replace him with this other guy that on this other team he has much more stats. It's like, dude, if you're gonna have everyone that gets like 3 kills a round, it's not possible. There's only
Mhm.
5 enemies every round. You know, how is that gonna work out? Someone needs to kind of be the, at the bottom, and you have to kind of figure out like what type of playstyle are you gonna have. Are you gonna have a one leaf running around killing 3 people around? Well, guess what? You're not gonna be able to have 3 kills as a controller or a sentinel every round. So
Yeah.
what are you gonna do about that? If you have
Or
5
6 with the sage
stars,
res,
you
right?
have no stars. Bah.
Well, I think that it's, worth asking the very important and really very easy question of who's winning champions.
Yeah, that's very easy.
Whose giggle was that? Vance, is that you?
FPX.
That's me.
You know what?
FPX?
And
I'm
Liquid in
down it.
second place. EMEA forever.
Wow.
God damn it. All right.
Traitor.
Well, let's-
Now
Yeah,
T1
yeah.
aren't getting
You
onto
guys
the
are
partner
pissed.
program in NA.
You guys are pissed.
No, I'm not pissed. I want the FPS back to back because I'm all about those storylines. So it's nice. It will be nice to close 2022 with a team that's going to be able to finally get a back to back, and even on top of that is champions as the title as the back to back. So I'm on board with the FPX train as well. But at least we could actually close it off here with a final question. Is going back into we brushed a little bit about the Valorant Players Association and the conversations that you had with Riot that maybe even helped into the decisions that Riot made into like what's going on with the tier 2 scene or what could happen within the tier 2 scene. So how did that come all about where, okay, well, you got Dazzle joining the board, you got Vanity joining the board. How did this all start? And how did the conversation start with Riot after?
You have Dazzle coming on soon, right?
Yeah.
It might be better to ask him because I'll tell you why. I'm not just like foisting this over
Stay
him.
tuned.
Okay?
Stay tuned.
I'm not foisting this onto him. So it was already getting put together, the Valorant Pro Players Association,
Mhm.
and Vanity and Dazzle, as I'm aware, were already on the board, and they were thinking of, okay, who else could we get that's kind of experienced and that will, participate regularly and everything like that, and from a
Mhm.
different team than we're currently on. So they basically said, oh, let's ask Steele if he wants to, come in and do it. And I was asked like, hey, do you want to be a part of the board of? And I'm like, okay, what does that involve? Oh, we're just gonna have meetings. We're gonna talk about stuff, and we're going to basically look out for all the players in our scene. And it's like, okay, sure. Like, as I'm really lazy and everything like that, but if there's a way that I can help, and it's I don't have to be some like actual leader in this capacity, then yes. If it's just like I'm here contributing as opposed to like leading this along, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And I think Dazzle was there
Okay.
before, so he might have a, a deeper look into the history of it.
Yeah.
And again, for any aspiring pros or current pros in North America, if you want to know more about this, you can ask Anthony Vanity Malaspina, or you can ask Dazzle.
Dazzle doesn't have full name.
Dazzle.
It's just Dazzle. So
Dazzle.
and you got other shit to
Big
lead, right?
Big Willie.
Exactly. You got other shit to lead too as IGLing for T1. So with that, I
Yeah,
know
yeah,
you have
yeah.
a hard stop here then, Josh. I wanted to know first off, any shout outs, any final things that you wanna say before we let you go here?
Yeah, shout outs to Riot, shout outs to T1. Riot, T1.
Josh,
Thanks
always
to
a
all the
fucking pleasure.
fans.
Always
GG's
a
Tough
fucking
Loss
pleasure.
started all the fans. We'll be back stronger. And do you guys have any sponsors on this that would conflict if I were to flash something?
What do you have?
What are you flashing?
A peripheral brand.
Go ahead, you're good.
Go ahead. Razer, they got an amazing product line. I got a Viper V2 Pro here. I got the grips on that. We got the Death Adder V3. This I'm selling on your show. Now you have to, when you upload this, you have to say includes paid promotion. Hashtag ad, by the way. I am sponsored by Razer, by the way.
But you haven't paid us, so
I have not
we're
paid
not gonna.
you.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll give you my
so.
royalties.
All right, that's a good
Would
idea.
you like it? How do you like it? Check, snail mail?
Look at that.
Oh,
look
eyes
at that.
emoji. Hell
You see-
yes.
Look at
Let's
that.
go.
You see how we're working together? You see how
Got
we're
the
working
production
together, Josh?
team. Let's go.
We always fucking got you. So, Josh, thank you so much. Always a fucking riot, no pun intended, to have you on the show and to just banter with you. All the best. Hopefully, we'll see you in the circuit for VCTs 2023. By the way, is that a T1 T-shirt or
No,
is it
this
just?
This is just Death Valley in California.
Where's all the Nike shit, man?
Oh,
Yeah, exactly. See,
Razor chair.
I'm looking after you. I'm looking after you, Josh.
there you go.
So there you go. Nike also a big sponsor for T1. But Josh, again, thank you for your time. We're going to let you go. We're going to go for a break. And when we come back, we actually do have a second interview. And that's going to be with Will Dazzle Loafman, the current IGL for Shopify Rebellion. Loafman it is. And we'll see you guys after the break.
Loafman will dazzle you. Okay, bye.